Hi there, it's Noisy Andrew and welcome to the internet. About 3 years ago, I made this gaming table that I'm currently sitting on out of some scrap wood out of our roof. And I thought it would be interesting to make a video about my thoughts 3 years on for how it's performed and what it's like owning a gaming table. I will put a link here or somewhere, maybe in the description, for the first video for those who are interested in how this was made. But this video is more about what I feel like having it. So firstly, owning an actual table that is dedicated for playing board games on is really good. Like, it's really good. Because this table has a topper, we just flip the topper on the top of the table, sort of in the name, and it gets used as a dining table. The sweetheart and her friends play Wednesday night X-Haven for years now. Like, I'm an X-Haven widower almost. Is that a word? I don't know. And of course, some of their scenarios take a while. So they leave it set up underneath. We put the topper on and the table is free for other use. And then next Wednesday, when it comes along, people can sit down, flip the top off and, you know, pick up the game where they left off. What would I do differently? Well, first of all, this surface here is meant to be reversible, but because I didn't get these rails exactly right, and I mean they're out by 5mm, that's all, the flip over surface doesn't work the way I want and it looks messy. So it's really only one surface. This surface comes out, it's just a bit of 3mm MDF with some fabric glued to it. So if the fabric gets damaged, it's very easy to pull it off, fix it up and put it back down. And in fact, we have a mild stain behind me where some tea or coffee decided it liked the table and wanted to include itself. But it's not enough for us to want to fix it just yet. But should the time come, it's not a hard thing to do. If I was making it again, I would be more accurate so that my whole idea of this surface being able to be lifted out, flipped over and put back down again so we could have a different playing surface would definitely be a thing. Partly that's made complicated because of the curved sides. But these are something I really like. This table will fit 10 people. Actually, if you're playing like a casual party card game or something like that, it will fit 12. You can fit 2 on each end and 4 down each side if you're cuddly and friendly. And part of that is because it doesn't have corner legs like so many of the other tables do. I did a little bit of looking around on the interwebs before I decided to make this video because I was curious, like, what would a gaming table that takes 10 or 8 people cost? And they're seem to be about the $4,000 mark. There's a couple of options in Australia, and in fact one of those options doesn't have corner legs, so good on them. But I'm a person who lives pretty simply. Have you seen the carpet on the floor down here? Like, I think it was new in the 1980s, and we're still living with it. Anyway, being a simple guy, I wasn't about to spend $4,500, maybe $6,000 on a table this size, who knows? So I made one myself because who doesn't like a project? And you know what? It's been wonderful. So you can see it's pretty solid. I'm sitting on it. So the splayed legs thing is not a problem when it comes to stability or anything like that. The finish on it is not a sprayed or lacquered finish. It's actually furniture oil, or basically beeswax and tung oil mix that you rub in with fine sandpaper. And it gives you a beautiful finish. And importantly, that finish is repairable. And we'll get to that because the topper has a scratch on it. And it's had a scratch for a while. In fact, the topper is the one bit that didn't work out perfectly. First of all, I didn't cut up enough pieces to make the parquet because I was too lazy to do the math, so I just cut up a big pile and was like, that'll be enough. And no, it wasn't. Which meant when I cut the next lot of pieces, they were ever so slightly different in size, less than 1mm. And of course, that creeps up on you when you're doing parquet. So there was some filling to do in gaps and things. And as much as the other people in my life say, oh, it doesn't matter, it's character, it's you, Andrew. I love to be remembered by my faults, hey. Evidently they're charming. It annoys me when I look at it. The topper is actually 3mm MDF with parquet on it, which is about 4mm thick, glued down and sanded, and oiled the same. And in fact, because that wood is thin, some of it has sort of split a little bit. You have to really rub your hand over it to find the cracks where it's dried out and what have you. It's probably fixable with a little bit more oil and a bit more sanding. We'll find out. Actually, I know it is. And that's sort of one of the points of this video. We're going to fix the scratches in the gaming topper, which is over there stuck to the wall. So we're going to start off with sanding, and I'm using a block. Normally when I'm doing a bit of sanding, I wear some gloves because it's not very good for your hands. Anyway, I went from 120 to 240, scrubbed away, and once I had things fairly clean, I put this oil on. This is hard burnishing oil by Organ Oil, but you can probably use lots of other sorts of oil on this. You basically give it a good coat, and then you hit it with a finer sandpaper. The sandpaper I'm using here is 400. Obviously, the finer your sandpaper is, the shinier it will become. And by actually doing this, you can actually almost get a gloss if you like your wood to look plastic, I guess. Anyway, give this a really good sand with the 400 and maybe a bit more oil and then a bit more sanding. I'm using wet and dry paper, but really this works with both. And once you've done that, you give it a really good buff with a cloth, like really put some elbows in to polishing it, and you will get the excess oil off it. And pretty much that's it. Pretty hard pressed to see the scratch then. Hey, and here we are, and pretty much the scratch is gone. You can see a little bit here where it was quite deep, and I didn't want to sand for the rest of the day to get down to that level, and it would have made a bit of a hollow here. So we're just going to call this a feature in the wood. Anyway, if you had a table that had a lacquered or varnished surface, you could not treat it like this to repair it, and this is why I've used an oil to finish this timber off. As I said earlier on, this is not something you can do on every finish. I wouldn't do this with a veneer. I wouldn't do this with plywood, which is actually a veneer anyway. It's really only good for solid timber. So, what do I not like about this table? Apart from the fact that I didn't quite get the topper right. Well, it's very big. So if you're playing a 2, 3 or 4 player game and you sit halfway down it, where you normally would with a gaming table, everyone's miles away. So generally speaking, if we've got 2 or 3 players, we just sit at the end and play here, and the rest of the table can be Siberia. That's fine. Remember, one of the design criteria of this, which I think I mentioned in the first video, was that this table was designed to take an 8-player game of Twilight Imperium. There was a time when we used to play Twilight Imperium on my birthday every year. I'd get a group of my most special friends over, and we would start with a champagne breakfast, come in here about 10 o'clock and play through till we usually finish before midnight, because most of my gamer mates are not too slow. And I can never remember who won those games. They were just fun. They just created a magical narrative. And often we found we'd play another game 2 weeks later because we enjoyed it so much. And then it was time to put it away for another 12 months. So the table is very big, and that's not great if you're only going to have 2 or 3 or 4 people playing a game. What I do like is obviously the no corner legs. The splayed legs give it sort of like a 1950s aesthetic, as do the curves down the side. And the curves down the side are actually quite important, because when you have, even though they're quite subtle, when you have a large group of people here, and I think we've had 14 around this for a meal, because the Sweethearts extended family is numerous. People sort of face each other a little bit rather than just sitting in a straight line, and that's a nice thing. And it also means the Twilight Imperium fits in the middle of the table when you've set up the big universe. So the fact that it's too big isn't great for like 3 or 4 player games, but you know, just sit at the end. It also means you can have 2 gaming groups at this table, which is a bit crazy, but whatever. Anyway, thanks for dropping by and liking the video. If you have you liked the video? I hope you have. Please subscribe if you want to be informed of what's happening with my fairly irregular video releases about board gaming adjacent stuff. And if you like what I do and want to support me a little bit, then drop by the Party Meeple store and buy one of my little games. And if you're a bit crafty, why don't you go to the same place and follow the link to the free print and play stuff. In fact, 5 or 6 years ago, I designed an area control trick-taking game called Tricky Pirates, which you can print out and play for free. You just need bottle caps for pirate ships, and give it a go. The Sweetheart loved playing 500 at the end of her Wednesday night gaming group nights, and so I thought, well, yeah, I should design a trick-taking game, and I do like area control aesthetic, so Tricky Pirates was born 5 or 6 years ago now. I don't remember. Probably should have a look. Anyway, thanks for your time.